Hello and welcome to this episode of Talking to Introverts podcast. And I'm giggling a little bit because Denise and I pressed record and then didn't know who was going to do the introduction. So here we are, ever the professionals. Yes, welcome. I'm Sami Blackford and my co-host and co-introvert is...
Hi there, Denise Oliver.
Hello and welcome. So in our last episode, we were talking about self-sabotage from the perspective of positive intelligence, which was created by, as I called him in that episode, that fella. Who was that fella, Denise?
That fella, that lovely man, Shazad Shameen.
So there is, in positive intelligence, there is the saboteurs. So this is the negative, let's use that word, way that our minds can affect us. And then there's also the more positive side, and that's the sage brain. And I think we did kind of touch on the sage brain slightly in that episode, but we're going to talk about it more today. And Denise, I'm going to hand over to you because I know you know a lot more about sage brain because you've done a lot more of the training than I have. But I will start by saying I know the sage brain has 5 strengths, and I can think of 3 of them off the top of my head. So there's activate, navigate. Oh, I lied. I can only think of 2. Innovate. That's another one. There's 2 others. What are the others?
You're going through them backwards with regards to how Shazad talks about them. So the top one, the first one, it's not the top, they're equal, but there's a way of working through them, is empathize. And that's about empathy with yourself, with others, with circumstances. And everything comes down to those 3 things: yourself, others, and circumstances. And then we explore, and this is getting deeply curious about anything and everything that occurs to you, to others, and circumstances. Then innovate, then navigate, then activate. And we can talk more about all of these as we go along. And there's also, to do with the sage, there's 3 other things, and these are things that are really easy to overlook or forget about. And these are 3 gifts. And Shazad has turned this into a specific technique that he uses with clients. And he talks about the gift of knowledge, the gift of power, and the gift of inspiration. And Shazad came to do all this work when he was ousted by his board of governors of his company for being far too controlling and not allowing people to put into practice things that they knew would help the company. And he, at the time, as you can imagine, was so upset and so angry that these people would come into his company and tell him how he should run it. And he had no idea just how difficult he was to work with at that time. And gradually, when he calmed down and he looked at the situation, he was like, they're right. They're absolutely right. And then he turned it around and he started to look at how, with knowledge and self-power, just how he could turn this around and actually offer this as inspiration to others. So out of that came positive intelligence. If you are interested, positiveintelligence.com is his website. And the only way you can get hold of him is through that website, or there is a LinkedIn profile as well. That's it. Those are just the 2 places that you can get all the information. Oh, he has a book, and there's the book, Positive Intelligence, which is a really good read. And that's how I came across it first. I just liked the description of it, bought the book, and quite honestly changed my life. Because when I looked at it and realised what my top saboteurs were, you can go on the website and do a, what do we call it? An assessment. So you can find out how you're functioning in life. And it's not all bad, it's information. So get curious about that information rather than judgmental, which you will do. We all do it. but you can turn it around and you can look at what drives you, your emotions, your beliefs, by looking at the saboteurs that you mostly live from. And you and I know what that's like. And
Mm.
we've worked together through his free course, which is 7 to 8 weeks of looking at all of this stuff. And then I went on to do a year with him, which just knowing that I had what he was talking about to look forward to was great at the time. Got a lot of information from it. A lot of information. He's just so into this and just from all aspects of life, you can adapt this model, whether it's to do with yourself, your relationships, your money, your business. He coaches big businesses. That's his thing. I mean, he's thousands of dollars to get a consultation with him now. But this format that he's created works really well across teams as well as for the individual.
Yeah.
And
And
he's just
I think that's something that was interesting just doing the free course. I learned a lot about myself, and also because was doing it in a group with others, and you especially because we've worked together before and since, um, is learning how each of us works and how we're different and how to use the skills that we each have, and knock on the head any of the saboteurs who raise their heads. So I can see how it would be really beneficial in like teams in big businesses to help them, work together more
yeah.
effectively.
I think one of the things I would say about this is that you also have to learn a way of calling out someone else's saboteurs rather than going, "Oh, you're in victim mode today. Stop it." That's not the way it's done. It's done with a much more circumspect approach than that.
Mm.
Obviously, between you and I, that is how we do it. We do just call each other out because it's just quicker, isn't it? It gets to the point.
Yeah.
But with a team, I do think you have to be more careful, more aware of what's going on generally for that person. Some
Mm.
people will, I quite honestly feel, will never, ever, ever change, no matter what they learn, because they're not interested in change. They're fine where they are. End of.
Mm.
If you know that you do want to change something about yourself, but you need information first, this is a great place to start. It really is. Positiveintelligence.com. Look for the saboteur assessment and do it, and then have a read of it. Perhaps do the free 8 week course. It says it's for coaches. You don't have to be a coach. It wants your reason for joining, but I'm convinced they will let anybody in because Shirzad has this commitment to service, and
Mm.
this is his legacy to the world. This is what he wants to leave to the world in order to change things from the world being very judgmental and negative to having a much more peaceful, kind, and loving, uh, bigger community everywhere.
Mm.
And he's worldwide now. So this isn't just a flash in the pan. This,
Yeah.
this is everything to him. It really is. He's brilliant.
And I will leave the link to the website and the assessment in the notes below, as ever. Generally, anything that we talk about, you will find links to in the in the description below. Um, and going back to something you said earlier, like as a little interjection, I think it's interesting from how I work with my clients that he only uses his website and LinkedIn.
Yeah,
Because you don't have to be everywhere, people. You do
I
not have
know.
to be on every platform doing all the things all of the time. You find something that works for you and go with it. So, Denise, tell us a bit more about the sage brain. So, we've touched on the gifts of the sage brain and the strengths of the sage brain. But what is the sage brain?
Shirzad describes the sage brain as your true self. If you could take away every judgment, all the stresses, all the anxieties, remove all of that. Easier said than done.
I was going to say, good luck.
Then you will get to your true essence. And I know, I mean, I've looked at him and gone, you've got to be kidding, but he has tools and techniques. What I
Mm,
loved about this, learning this, and I was learning havening at the same time, is how they dovetailed.
mm,
Because in havening, we understand the stress, anxiety, overwhelm, fears comes from a particular area of the brain. And guess what? That's where the saboteurs are.
mm,
So the saboteurs are generated from our fear. End of. But the sage brain again links with havening techniques is the part of our brain that is only part of being human, and animals don't have this. Now, animals can appear to be like kind and caring and loving, and yes, they are, because we share a mammalian brain with certain animals on the planet. But we have even more of a brain, and lodged somewhere in our prefrontal cortex, that bit at the front of us, there's this, so Shirzad says, there is this area of the brain which, when we tap into it, is our pure essence, our true essence, our love, our tenderness, our compassion. And this is what he wants us all to get to, is this area of the brain whereby we're not constantly enraged, or we're actually enjoying ourselves and our life and our circumstances, and everything in life is an opportunity. And this is where he wants everyone to get to, is that no matter the event that you've gone through or are going through or experiencing, once you calm your negative brain down, you can access the positive brain, and you can look at things from a loving, compassionate standpoint. The region of the brain that the sage lives is where your positive emotions come from, where you have incredibly clear-headed focus, and you can feel it in your body as well. When you're anxious, it's not just your brain that's doing tripping you up and doing somersaults. You can feel it in all of your body. But it's the same when you go the other way. When you're suddenly clear about something, your whole body's clear about it.
mm.
Because the cells in your brain that are triggering you, similar cells are all over your body. And it's just like, oh, so that's why it like courses through everything. Um, it's where your creativity is, it's where your peace and calm is, and it's where you will see the bigger picture.
I thought it was interesting, and again, something you were talking about earlier is the gifts of the sage brain, knowledge, power, and inspiration. And the way you were talking about power and how Shirzad, through the experience he went through, kind of regained that power of self power. And we hear so much, don't we, in the perhaps more spiritual self development world about reclaiming your power, taking your power back, and all of that. Um, and this, I think, I mean, my experience of that sort of world is like, yeah, everybody tells you to take your power back. How do you do it? Like, nobody actually tells you how you go about that. And it's all very like mystical and spiritual and all of that. I think this is how Shirzad talks about it, is much more down to earth, much more practical, I suppose, in a way.
It's very
Um,
doable. I think that's
yeah.
what I like. Yeah, he is a very like mystical person. He has got that aura about him.
Mm,
But that's because he's in sage brain all the time. He has worked so hard at this. And I have watched him, like his energy change when someone's asked him a question and he's been asked the same question 10 times in the same interview. And it's just like they're trying to come at it from a different angle while they get some of the response that's going to work for their brain. And I've just seen him like almost like do a shudder and then stop and be like, just not say anything very briefly. And then suddenly he's calm again. And then he answers the question again. It's the same answer. And it's just like, it's so interesting to watch that because it's so easy to just flip into anger and rage.
Mm,
You know, it just is because that's how we're programmed. When he talks about the gift of power, he says you see this like you go to the gym and you're going to lift weights and you start with the weight that's only just a little bit uncomfortable and you start lifting those weights and then gradually you build and build and build, and this gift of power from the sage brain just keeps on creating more and more of that initially self-compassion so that you have compassion for others and for circumstances as well. So he doesn't talk about our mental health or our mental wellness. He talks about having mental fitness.
mm,
And you know you have mental fitness when you're in a situation that you might have in times gone by, might have been hours, days, weeks, years. You would have exploded in some way. And now you're just in that phase of, okay, I can see the bigger picture here. I know whether to comment or not. And if I do comment, it comes from love. It's a very, very different way of engaging with people.
mm,
Not everyone likes it. I'm going to say that now because there are people who are, they think they're very attached to their judge and their saboteurs, but actually it's your brain that has that hold over you. And your brain is telling you through the amygdala, through working memory, I can connect Havening and this together, that anything where you will find pure love and compassion and peace and calm doesn't exist. Well, it does. It exists within you. You are
mm,
wired for bliss. End of. You have receptors on the wall of every cell that is wired for bliss. And you can produce those bliss chemicals, those hormones within you, and they can dock onto cells in your body, and you can be calm with that. That's really old stuff. I was writing about this for my blog, about morphine and how people get guilty about their relatives having morphine when they're dying, thinking that they're accelerating the death process. You can't take on board anything, morphine, paracetamol, anything, unless your body can accept it. And your body can only accept it if it's got receptors on the cell walls. And this was the work of a wonderful woman called Candace Pert, Molecules of Emotion. So you'll judge your amygdala, where the energy of this comes from, it's 4 times faster than the blink of an eye. And your judge will tell you that this sage perspective is crazy, it's naive, it's downright dangerous. Why would you want to come off stress alert and enjoy a life of peace and calm? Surely.
goodness me, why would you want that?
Why would you want that, for goodness sake? Why? Why would you go there? Why, we are hardwired. We can't not be. It's part of who we are. We've been like this for millions of years. And that's all about survival. Great. When we were another animal's prey, when we had to have that, when the planet was very dangerous,
Mm,
because we were being stalked by things a lot bigger than us. Think Tyrannosaurus Rex, even a bear, things like that.
and the modern day equivalent, emails pinging at all hours and text
Social
messages coming
media.
through and
Yeah,
social media and the
yeah,
news.
I know. That is huge. And that
Mm,
keeps our amygdala firing. And our amygdala, where our judge resides, our other saboteurs reside, will tell you that the only way to be safe is either avoidance or anger or whatever, and it's just like, no, there is another way. What I love about Sherzad's work is he's a big fan of Star Wars. And I think even people who aren't fans of Star Wars know the Star Wars terminology because Star
yeah.
Wars has been around forever. So he says that getting to um, this state, this sage brain state, is like Luke Skywalker going through all the trials and tribulations that he went through to move away from the dark side, where there was a massive pull where his father was, to the light side, which is where the no, what were they? The Federation, the dark side? See, I like the original Star Wars. I've not watched it for a long time. But you getting to a state of coming off survival brain into thrival brain is your Jedi training. And he talks about going through all the different coloured belts for judo or jiu-jitsu and things like that. And he says even he's not black belt at this. Black belt is the highest award you can achieve.
Yeah.
Accomplishments. And he says, no, every day he is challenged in some way, whether it's his children who challenge him, whether it's his co-workers who challenge him, whether it's the people like myself, yourself, who've done his courses who challenge him. Every day is a gift and opportunity for him to keep developing his sage brain. So it's not a one and done. You're not going to go and do the assessment on his website and go, oh, got it now. That's not how it works. It's diligence and discipline and using tools and techniques that bring you down from survival brain, off stress, off anxiety, off worry, off overwhelm, out of fear, and actually has you building your resilience, your adaptability, and you find your essence and your flow in doing that. And I think for a lot of people, this work is scary because it can change their lives. And we're comfortable with our discomforts in life, and we don't want to change those because it's just too much. That is where the saboteurs jump in, because what if is really negative. Whereas you can still use what if with questions that are positive as well, that takes you the other way into resilience. It's not enough to not be scared. You've also got to come into a much more creative, loving space within yourself. And you've got to know what triggers you. And I love work like this because I like to find out what I've not looked at, where they call it shadow work. There's the whole modalities around shadow work. What am I hiding from? What am I not willing to look at? And so when I'm triggered, it's like, so what is this? Get deeply curious about, why am I triggered here? Why is this sensation in my body? What suddenly set it off? And so, yeah, I love anything like this.
I'm glad that you talked about, it's not a one and done thing. It is a process. It's, building the muscle, building the skill. Because I think many of us, I'm going to say, and possibly more so the younger generations now, if they're not experts at something after one try of doing it, they really beat themselves up. And I've seen this in my nibblings, my niece especially. Like, I was teaching her to climb a wall so that she could look over the fields down the road. And she did it one time. She's like, I can't do it, I can't do it, I can't do it. I'm like, no, you just got to keep trying. You just got to, give it another go, and showed her where to put her feet and things. And anyway, after a few tries, she managed to get up. And it's that, oh, I've tried it once, I can't do it. And I wonder if that is, well, there's so much that we could talk about with that, isn't there? It's like, are we all told now that we're special and we're amazing and we're good at everything and all of that kind of stuff? So that, if we're not, then, oh my God, we have to run away from that because that questions our whole identity. Or is it that we see people online that, seem to be these overnight successes and they're really good at something and, oh, we should be like that. But obviously we don't see the years of training beforehand. So I think it's always important to say that, these things take time. It takes time and effort and, doing the work, as it were.
Yeah, and often money as well. That's one of the things I love about Shirzad is that we learned so much about ourselves and each other on a free 8-week course. What we had to commit to was time and effort.
Mm.
And then I paid money to do a whole year with him, which was just fascinating. I mean, my notes are volumes of notes that he's given me. And sometimes I look back at them like I did so that we could talk about sage brain and what that involves. And I'm like, oh, I forgot I'd written that. Oh, look at that note. Oh, look at my doodle. Clearly drifted off at some point. Um, I think the biggest thing about the sage brain is when a bad things happen, or what you consider to be a bad thing, is you're either going through it or you're looking back at it. It's so easy that you can be incredibly resentful, angry, bitter, all of that. But it's actually looking back and choosing to move away, because that's this very stressful state to be in all the time. And if it constantly comes up for you, that needs working on. And no one can do it for you. You have to seek some help from somewhere. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of us have like low rumbles all the time. It's like it's not a full-on earthquake. We're not about to lose our shit because we've been taught not to. Um, but we want to. We want to rage against the machine. You know, we want to be full of righteous indignation about our place in the world and bad things that have happened. And he said this and she did the other, and all of that. Instead of looking at the part that we've played in that,
Mm.
the part we've played by actually possibly not speaking up at the time, not making moves away from situations at the time.
Mm.
We've lived with things, and we just build up these molecules of emotion that actually are against ourselves. What's that saying? We take the poison hoping the other person will die. That's what he's talking about with the saboteurs. They're the poison in our system,
Mm.
but we continue to listen to them. We continue to be poisoned by them instead of looking at the flip side of ourselves. We have been given this amazing gift that is within us to actually live incredibly kind, peaceful, more than that, these lives of contentment. But
Mm.
we choose to, I don't know, we just choose the opposite all the time.
And something that you said earlier, where you found that positive intelligence really dovetailed with havening techniques, which we were studying at the same time. I think a lot of people would find that if they've got a modality that they are drawn to, that they practice, I think this would seamlessly fit in with. So I'm thinking like EFT would work with this, meditation would work with this, anything along those lines about like calming down the negative voices in the brain. You know, you could easily partner with the content of positive intelligence.
Yeah, very easily. Shirzad was always very keen to give examples of where something bad would happen to someone. And one of the people he commented about was, well, two people that come to mind. One was Christopher Reeve, who was the my Superman in
Yeah.
the day, who had that horrendous accident and ended up not being able to move from the neck down. Now, he could have gone into enormous self-pity over what happened and, really, well, just not wanted to live at that point. But he didn't. Instead, he actually helped research, and I think an awful lot of stuff for paraplegics was developed as a result of what happened to him. So he left an incredible legacy from
Mm.
something that was an awful thing to happen to anyone. That's what Shirzad's getting at. That's an awful thing to happen. But he didn't see it as that. He was going to contribute in any way he could. And if he can do that, who else can? The other person he mentioned a lot was Nelson Mandela. I mean, look at the horrendous circumstances he went through. and yet he comes out to lead a country with kindness and compassion and no recriminations for his jailers, for the people who were cruel to him. And it's just like, if they can do it, we can do it. They appear to be incredibly special people. They're human beings like you or I are.
Mm.
They can do it, we can do it. What we have to become aware of, they won't have known this, but because this stuff wasn't around when they were going through what they went through. But the stuff that Shirzad has found, I think, so for me, my top saboteur, oh, I've got four, but pleaser and avoider, very high, very, very high. But also I have a very high victim. And so I think if you go into more of a victim mode of why me, why
Mm-hmm.
now, this is one of those courses, if you do the 8 weeks or the book, read about what it's about, and you suddenly find yourself going, oh, so if I'm in that, I can get out of it. I don't have to wallow over there in a turd pool with other people. I can come out and swim in some beautiful clear water and actually enjoy myself.
Mm.
But it takes practice to, when whatever saboteur comes up is there within you, you have to practice whatever tools and techniques you're going to use, whether you might want to go to hypnosis, hypnotherapy for this sort of thing, to help you stop releasing those molecules of emotion, to quiet your mind and to activate your sage, so that you take on this, you redirect. He talks about whatever the circumstances, whatever the pain point is that comes up, you redirect that into inspired action.
Mm.
So you take the negative and you create the positive. Some people are masters at it. It's just what, somehow it comes naturally to them. And others, for instance, Shirzad says he's one of them. He has to work at it. I have to
Mm.
work at it. Because for however many years I've been on this planet, the negative side of life seemed to be where everyone else was functioning. There was the odd person here and there who didn't. And I wanted
Mm.
to know why they were like they were. How come they didn't function the same way as I did? So I was
Yeah.
always curious about that. And then gradually stuff shows up and we can look at.
I was going to say, every, like, talking about every situation, every circumstance has the gift attached to it, but you can't always see it when you're deep in the trenches of it,
Yeah,
of whatever the circumstances is. And I think that's another thing that you get with um, a lot of the spiritual world, let's say, online, is like every bad experience is a gift. It's an opportunity. Every cloud has a silver lining, whatever, however you want to describe it. And again, there needs to be that caveat of it might take time to see it.
yeah. He Shirzad has said that there isn't anything he's worked with that can't be changed from a saboteur perspective into a sage gift and opportunity. There's nothing. It's just creating new neural pathways in your brain, so that instead of, we are programmed to find three negatives for every one positive, because that's our survival. That's what happens. But we're in a situation now that we can reprogram our brain to find three positives for every negative. But we have to work at it. You have
Mm.
to be diligent. I have to remind myself every day. I came on this podcast to do this recording, and at one time in my life, I just wouldn't have done it, because I feel so tired at the moment, physically, exhausted, helping my daughter to move house and everything involved with that. And at one time, I just wouldn't have been able to do this. I would have told myself it was okay for me to just not show up.
Mm.
It's okay, I'll catch up we'll do it some other time. Constantly running on stress and anxiety because, of course, if I didn't do it now, I've still got to do it. It's still going to come up. And it's just like, no, I can hear the voice of the judge, like, softly telling me. My judge is very quiet, very mean, and like lurks and, just tries to make out what a friend he is, a he as well, what a friend he is to me. And actually, he's not. He's actually really holding me back because
Mm.
he has his own interests going on for him. He believes, he hasn't got a name, he's just a he, that he's doing everything in my best interest. But I have this sage capacity that can look at things and go, actually, no, that isn't the best thing for me. But so developing that resilience and adaptability has been massive over the last, I'm going to say, 15 years of my life. And it's no time at all because I had all those years before that I wasn't in this place. So there's constantly stuff in the background whirring away, and I never know what's going to come up and what's going to trigger me, and how long it's going to take me to get out of my saboteur negativity and back into this sage calmness. And I can feel it in my body. I'm highly sensitive to those molecules of emotion that are whizzing around my body at any time.
Mm.
And sometimes it's just really difficult to get that control back. And other times it's a blink of an eye and I've sorted it. So when I struggle with it, I'm like, okay, so what's behind this? And once I know what's behind it, then I can work on that. And I can work on dissolving the negativity molecules of emotion and creating the positivity molecules of emotion, both in my brain and neural pathways that then affect the rest of my body. What do you remember for you about the sage perspective?
Um, Possibly the obvious is that I didn't get the sage brain as easily as I got the saboteurs.
Yeah,
Like the saboteurs, I instantly recognized and understood what they were doing, what they were about, and could recognize them within my brain, within my body, really easily. The sage brain, I didn't have that. It wasn't. It. I didn't understand the gifts as easily. I didn't understand the strengths as easily. I didn't understand what the sage brain was about as easily. I didn't feel it as easily in my, or tap into it as easily in my brain and my body as with the saboteurs, which, I mean, I'm not beating myself up for it. It's kind of the obvious thing that would happen, isn't it? That
yeah,
we're so used to being in the negative that even just finding the, like the sage brain would be not as easeful. Um, and I think the sage brain, because I did the 8 week or however long it was free course, we didn't really look at the sage brain as much as we looked at the saboteurs.
yeah,
And I think for myself, there was more, and it's still ongoing, more of this connecting with the sage brain and tapping into that and looking at it and what it is for me, like how it feels for me, how it shows up for me. Um, mm,
yeah. I think one of the things that it's like I know this, but I don't remind myself of this, is that one has the capacity for self-command. You can either, you're at a fork in the roads, you can go down the saboteur route and experience all of that, or you can choose to go down the sage route and experience all of that. You have the command over yourself to do that. But if you've never tapped into that,
mm,
that's going to take, and one day you'll just get it. You just will. And he uses something which we won't go into much here. I'll just very briefly talk about them, called PQ reps. And this is your positive quotient. So I'm always really glad it's got PQ, just shorten it to PQ. And these are repetitions of something that bring you back, right back into the present moment. When you find your brain is going off on one, and it does, mine still does it, it rages, and it's like, what is this about? Well, I'm cooking the tea. What is this about? And there's something that you repeat, that you put your focus on. It might be breathing technique. He uses a PQ rep that is literally rubbing your finger and forefinger together. It might be wiggling your toes in your shoes. Takes you away from the thoughts in your brain into something else. It just redirects your brain, and it's that constantly. It's like when you're a baby, you don't come out of the womb walking. You have to learn how to do it. So through repetition, you learn to walk. You want to build up muscles, physical ones. We know about those. You have to be consistent with your weights. So your negative thoughts are your weights. And how much weight do you want to lift today? And your PQ reps are your way of using those negative thoughts to change to positive ones and grow your mental fitness. You have to work at it in order to create new neural pathways in your brain. This is a very physical thing that has to happen. It won't just happen just by a thought process alone. You have to add it to something else. Positive intelligence is based in lots of different things, positive psychology and mindfulness and a couple of other things, which I can't remember now. And Shirzad's done all that work and created something incredibly meaningful for the world out of his disappointment with himself, his company, and the people he thought had his back, when actually he didn't have anyone's back. He didn't even have his own, because he couldn't see himself. And so then he did a deep dive. He likes information, into lots of information, and created this because he wishes to serve, and he wishes to serve in a positive way. So yeah, so let's just remind everyone of the sage powers. Can you remember them now?
I wrote them down, so I
There
would be
you go.
cheating.
That's a good place to start.
So empathize, explore, innovate, navigate, and activate.
Yeah. So I've got in my notes, this goes from conceptual, so from an idea, to experiential. You have to do it. So
Yeah.
then you go from doing it to becoming it. It becomes part of your being. It becomes easier and easier the more you do it. And actually, once you have an understanding, or you've had a session with someone about this, a lot of it comes down to you to actually work at this. And I still do my repetitions. I can't remember I don't think you can get the app without doing one of the courses, but
No, I don't
within
think
the
so.
app itself, there's a positive intelligence app. There are exercises you can do to calm your brain down. 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 15-minute ones, whilst choosing whichever one of the physical repetitions you're going to do. Our breathing is a good one because we have to do that. But to actively take over our breathing and be present with it is a really good thing to do. I mean, that's just known through yoga and all of the other stuff that's, the vagal nerve stuff, everything like that.
What I found to be a useful tip, let's say, when using the app and those exercises like you were just talking about, is when we were doing the free course, we had to do, was it 15 minutes a day of these exercises? And so, my brain's like
No, you could
analyzing.
do 2 minutes a day, 3 times a day. So if that's all you had time for, that's what you did. But he did encourage you to do longer ones at least once a day.
Yeah, so in my brain, the way it was like it was recommended to do 15 minutes a day, let's say. So my brain's like, okay, so that's 5 minutes a day. Let's do this analytically. But then what I found interesting was, I don't know if it was in one of the Q&A things or somewhere, Shirzad said it's best to do your 15 minutes, like first thing in the morning, because then you're starting the day with a calm brain, in sage brain. And then if you feel like you need to top that up during the day, then great. But at least you know that you're starting the day, which I suppose is like similar to, meditation, where, teachers say, first thing in the morning, do your meditation. Um, like so many different practices are morning practices. I suppose for that same reason, start the day in the state that you will be most beneficial.
I think it's too easy to wake up and the saboteur brain is on it because it's so fast and it's telling you what you haven't done, what you should have done, and all of that. And then you start telling yourself you're no good, you're not worthy, etc. Whereas if instead you go to calming your brain and breathing, the PQ reps he used, I would use havening touch now, which is very similar. Just something you do, that connection with yourself, and you choose to celebrate something, but try to find three things. I didn't understand this three positives and all this gratitude stuff until I did havening, and it was explained to me the difference between the negativity and the positivity, and the reason that I'm looking for these positives is to regrow my brain, is to create different neural pathways within my brain. And so to have these celebrations of self for waking up, doing whatever you're going to do, your mindfulness, your meditation, this is way easier. 15 minutes maximum. Yes, thank you. I'll have that. Or for me, it's havening techniques, 5 minutes. Don't even have to have a problem. I focus on being positive, focus on my breathing. If I have a problem, then I go into full-on havening techniques, not just havening touch and breathing, because we don't tend to acknowledge ourselves and our positivity. We just don't do it. We're not wired to do it. We have to create the wiring for it. Our saboteurs will tell you you'll never get better. You'll always be the worst at. And actually, you can do anything you want if you're prepared to put the time and effort in. Anything. And the other thing I think that we do in our society is we're very much outside ourselves. We very much look for validation outside of ourselves. That what we're doing is okay at best, but never great. And everyone else has got it right except us. And that's saboteur thinking.
Yeah. And like when I listen to you say that, there's also like really crazy thinking. How would, out of like 8 billion people on the planet, how would you be the one person that hasn't got it all together where everybody else has?
I know, but that goes through people's minds.
I know.
It's crazy what triggers us, what activates us in a negative way. But we can turn anything around. Anything. We really can. It's just you have to put yourself first.
Oh, Denise Oliver, how very dare you?
I often think that if you have an electric car, you have to plug it in. This is the same thing. In order to be able to go the distance, in order to be able to do it with ease, you have to plug yourself into something that's going to fuel you, fire you, and create that.
Mm.
You know, your car doesn't run on fresh air yet. Who knows? Maybe one day, but not right now. And right now, neither I can't. I don't know if you can function on fresh air alone. Um, there are some people who believe you can, but I'm not one of them. So it's that reconnecting and recentering with yourself that the sage is all about, and finding that calm inner space in havening. It's about that haven within where you are safe, you are connected with you, the being, and you are living your best life.
Mm.
And sometimes circumstances have to change for that, for you to be living your best life.
Mm.
But as long as you can do it with a kindness for you and for others and their circumstances as well, then you're well on your way to, I don't know, to your black belt, as Shirzad would say.
And a sentence that you said earlier that I made a note of that I really liked: every day is a gift and an opportunity. And I think so often, if we've had a bad day, let's say, and we wake up the next day still in that bad day from the day before, where, each day is a new day, a new gift, a new opportunity, and let's meet each day as that. I actually have, it's just come to my mind, on my phone, I've got a clear case, and I've got two tea bag tags, which sounds weird, but if anybody drinks, who is it? Yogi Tea. They have a little quote on the tag on the tea bag, and one of them says, "Every day can be a new beginning." It's in the back of my phone. So
Let's finish now on just some questions. So sometimes I know I used to be like this. This is how loud my saboteurs were. Affirmations didn't work for me because now I recognize my saboteurs were telling me what a waste of time they were. Don't be ridiculous. That's not going to work.
who do you think you are?
Yeah, totally. That there's my self-worth didn't exist. So imposter syndrome, yes, here I am walking the streets. Um, that whole I'm not good enough type thing is so rife in our society. But what was
Mm.
one of your teabag affirmations? What did you just read out?
Um, every day can be a new beginning.
So what if you're thinking, yeah, I say that to myself, but it doesn't work.
Mm.
You have to ask your brain questions so that when your amygdala fires in its survival way and your saboteurs all wake up because the amygdala's been fired, your amygdala goes to a part of your brain called working memory, where everywhere that you thought that when you wake up, every day's a bad day, that's what it's going to show you. So instead, ask a question so that when your amygdala goes to working memory, to do a Google search in effect, when you ask a positive question, it will find a positive response.
Which
So,
is like Google. If you say, I want, um, I don't know, a dress that's not yellow, it's going to bring you back yellow dresses
yeah,
because you put dress and yellow.
yes.
But
So
if
what
you,
if, so the way to do it is with what ifs. We tend to use what ifs as negatively, but what if um, every day is a gift and opportunity?
mm,
And if you ask a question like that, your your working memory, your Google search within you will find everywhere that during the day there are gifts and opportunities. And I often think that one of the things we do is we want them to be massive.
yeah,
Yeah, we want them to be Kilimanjaro sized, but actually, a lot of them are like pebbles on the beach.
yeah,
One pebble on a beach is beautiful, and that's what we have to look for. We have to look for those moments, and we start to store those as memories, as positive affirmations. And there's loads of ways you can use that what if thing. But if you
Yeah.
wake up every morning and ask, what if today is filled with um, growth and opportunity? What if today I could be more creative than yesterday? And you'll find you start asking questions like that and your brain shifts.
Mm.
And your brain starts doing that Google search for, oh yeah, gifts and opportunities. Yeah, great. Creativity. You want more creativity? Let me show you how creative you've been. Marvelous.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
And this, people, dear listener, is what's known as manifestation.
Yes. And it does work, but you have to be prepared to put the work in with your brain.
Yeah.
We think the brain knows it all and that everything, we don't need to work with the brain. And there's been, I think, because of, we know that yoga and Eastern medicine works, but we're very much in the Western Hemisphere, very much governed by science, and science is very slow to catch up. And there are certain brains that won't work with just experience. They've got to have the solid facts. Well, it's coming. Neuroscience and psychology combined is bringing that those facts to us. And so they know that the brain can be rewired. So
Mm.
if you feel like you've been someone who's been down on themselves and down on others and down on circumstances, and you know there's something else out there, then this might be the way to go. Look up
Mm.
positive intelligence. It's not our work. We just really love it because
Yeah.
of what we did. And there's a lot that you do in the 8 weeks, an awful lot.
Yeah.
And that on its own is marvelous.
And
Really.
if you so the 8 weeks, I think, does he do 1 or 2 a year of the free courses? Anyway, which, however often he does it, if you do the saboteur assessment, you will get updates of when the next one will be
Yeah.
going live.
I think
And
there's one going live very soon.
highly, highly recommend it.
Yeah, highly.
So I think that might be a good place to end this. So reminder of the question: what if every day is a gift and an opportunity? What if today, as you're listening to this, is a gift and an opportunity?
Well, let's do another one. What do you want to acknowledge and pat yourself on the back for?
Ooh, nice.
Yeah. And it can, and I do get how hard it can to be positive when you've had this sense of heaviness and um, it's not clinical depression, but this sense of depression. And I once went to a homeopath and she just said to me, it's not depression you've got, it's a lack of expression. You're keeping it all locked up inside. But I didn't know how to unlock it.
Mm.
That was the thing. And it's taken me years to find out how to unlock it. And now I'm there, I'm like, no one's putting the lid back on that box. Thank you very much. It's no, no, no. Every day is a gift and opportunity. Every moment is a gift and opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
It's just what you want to do with it that matters. So keep working towards your black belts, people, and your safe brain. Highly recommend it.
So all things that we've talked about, there'll be links below. So reminder that you have been listening to Talking to Introverts with myself, Sami, and my co-host Denise. Thank you so much for joining us. If you have any comments, do leave them in the comments section. We always love to hear from you. And we'll be back with you in a couple of weeks. Bye bye for
Bye.
now.